Hey guys, I'm back for another cutie tutorial. This time we'll be illustrating the closest thing to a unicorn, a narwhal. Even if you're a beginner in drawing, you should be able to follow along because I broke it down into simple shapes and lines. You can finish in whatever medium you like, but I'll be using ink and watercolor. So grab your favorite supplies and let's start. Make sure to use a light hand with your pencil or a light pencil like this one. I left a link to all the supplies I'm using in the description if you're curious about what it is. The first step is a simple upside down teardrop. If this is hard for you to draw, you can start by drawing a circle and then the two lines coming out of it. Next, we're going to round out the right side with the wavy line connecting the top and bottom like so. Take your time with this. We're going to continue out the line a little bit and then we'll draw another wavy line to close it off. This is the bottom of the tail. If you mess up, don't be afraid to erase and try again. Next, we draw the fin with simple shapes that mirror each other. If this is hard for you to do, try drawing teardrops like this one. All you have to do is mirror them. You can also move your paper around to get a better angle so it's easier to draw them. Next, we're drawing a line in the middle of the initial teardrop and crossing it. This is how we decide where the eyes and the mouth will go. You might have seen this before in how people draw characters. You can put the cross higher for a more curious look or lower for a more cute look. Now we're going to the middle of the vertical line and we're going to start with a squished half circle and then two lines connecting for the horn. You can make it thicker or thinner, whatever you want to look like, but notice how I angled it slightly to the left since our narwhal is facing in that direction. Be sure yours is angled in the direction he's facing, just to give it a touch of realism. We're almost done. Now add the eyes on the horizontal line. You can put them closer together or further apart. That's up to you. But usually further apart is cuter. I use simple ovals, but you can do circles or even include the whites of his eyes. For the mouth, I'm doing a simple U shape that is the trademark of my style, but remember that there's all kinds of faces that you can do, and I encourage you to play with it on a scrap piece of paper. If you run out of ideas, look at your favorite cute characters and study them. They're usually done with simple lines, and simple lines can say a lot. Studying other people's art is a great way to add new inspiration to your art memory bank. And when you have a lot of ideas, it's easy to put your own spin on them, and you'll have something completely new and unique. Isn't that cool? So don't be afraid to have fun and experiment. All that's left is his little arms. You can make them even smaller than I do for an even cuter look. They're just two simple curved lines similar to his tail. I draw it on one side, notice how it overlaps with his body. Then I draw lines to guide me so I can draw the other side in the same spot. This is just something I'll erase and it just helps me to make it all even. This one is coming from behind his body since he's angled, so the lines are hidden behind him. My first sketch didn't look right, so I simply erased and tried again. Much better. See, I make mistakes too, in fact, all the time. So don't be afraid to use your eraser. Now we're done with the sketching phase. I will be outlining him in ink using a fine zebra disposable brush pen, but you can use whatever you like, from markers to colored pencils or even just jump into painting. But if you are going to use ink first and watercolors later like me, make sure your ink is waterproof first. You can do this with a simple test. Just draw a line on a piece of paper, let it dry, and then add water to it and see if it bleeds. I start by inking the horn and adding in some lines to give it texture. Notice how my inking style is not to let all the lines touch. This gives it a more playful feel. I continue inking all around with the same technique, and I like to vary my line width as well for a more fun look. Once I'm done, I'm ready to erase my sketch. You can be done here, but I decided to add more details with colored pencils. I add little pink cheeks, some circles on his head, and a curved line for a belly. You could add all these with whatever medium you started with, like the ink for me, but I love mixing colored pencils with watercolors for a fun textured look. If you want to make the details more fun, you can add a star or a heart or whatever you like. Now it's time to color him. I will be using watercolor, and again, you can use whatever you want. If you want to learn how to use watercolor and are a complete beginner, I have a class that makes it easy. Dive in. I'll have to link for it below. Now I use lots of water and little paint to keep it light and let pinks, purples, and blues mix on the page for a fun look. Just like everything else, the colors are also up to you. You'll be recognizable no matter what colors you use. Notice how I left the belly much lighter for a nice contrast and alternated the colors on the horn. Now I wanted to make it even more fun, so I lightly traced the inside of my tape to add a perfect circle for the background. Make sure your paint is dry where it touches the tape when doing this. If you don't have tape, you can use a cup or any circular object. Just get creative. Now I can have a perfect circle in the background. Notice how I use lots of paint this time to make it dark, so it contrasts nicely with the light coloring of our little guy. I mix the same colors as before, and this gives it a nice galaxy effect, but you can easily just use different colored blues to give an underwater feel. While the background is drying, I add a few more details into the narwhal itself using colored pencils to add more texture and subtle shading, and watercolors to do the same. These are just small touches that give it a little bit more dimension. You can do more shading than I do or less, it's up to you. Once it's fully dry, I go back in with my favorite white pen, the Uniball Signo Broad Point Gel Pen. I add in little white dots on his cheeks and horn to show shininess. I also vary their sizes and clump them together in the background. This gives it that galaxy look. I finish off by outlining the little guy in white, but notice how I keep it sparse. This just increases contrast and makes him pop more. If you outline him completely, it'll give a sticker look, which is also cool. Like I said before, do whatever you want, experiment, and make it your own. This is the best way to learn and grow, especially in art. And we are done. He turned out super adorable. I hope you enjoyed making this little guy with me. Leave a comment below for what critter you want to see cutified next. If you want to learn the skill of drawing any animal cute, check out my class. You can draw cute animals in 3 simple steps. I'll leave a link to it below, and I even have a class on drawing cute people, foods, and even Christmas cuties. As always, it's been a pleasure illustrating with you. I hope you like what you make, and I hope you give it a try if you didn't try it yet. And I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Stay awesome and happy creating.